Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Feinstein here in the archives at the Great American Songbook Foundation in beautiful Carmel, Indiana. And it's a great joy to welcome a very special guest to our archive. He just sort of wandered in, and it's funny. It's amazing to have a Tony-winning orchestrator, an incredible musician here. He didn't actually wander in. This is Bryan Carter, with whom I am happily collaborating on an engagement here at Feinstein's at Hotel Carmichael. And Bryan is somebody I've known for a number of years now, whom I first collaborated with as an incredible drummer. And then I've watched him grow in his musical activities. I mean, seeing how you have produced shows and have been composing music and then have started formidably arranging for all different kinds of ensembles and winning a Tony for the orchestrations of the current Broadway musical Some Like It Hot. So Bryan, to me, is a link to the classic part of music and arranging and this legacy, because you are a student and a person who studies all of this material. So please tell me and our virtual friends what interested you in this classic form of music, which is unusual for most people your age.
Sure. Well, firstly, I do enjoy wandering into places where I'm uninvited. No. But especially a place like this where there are so many important historical documents and artifacts. For me, I got into orchestrations by listening to Disney films and just the cartoons that I grew up watching. And I always wondered, those orchestras sound amazing. And I started playing violin. That was actually my first instrument when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And I decided that I wanted to write for the Disney films. And so I started collecting scores. My dad's a musician, so I would go to his office and I would pull out all of his scores from his library and would not put them back, and he would get upset with me. And, I just always been drawn to the sound of the orchestra and the sound of the big band.
When did you make the leap from listening to music to becoming aware of the process of that it has to be written by somebody, and there's someone who composes a piece, and then there's someone who arranges it, and sometimes it's the same person, and sometimes not. When did you make that leap from hearing something to starting to understand about the process?
Sure. Well, again, my dad's a musician, so I would see him 1, 2 in the morning downstairs at the piano, furiously writing with sweat on his brow. And Dad, what are you doing? What's that? So I'm arranging for the band or for the orchestra, whomever he was working with at that time. And I would sit there and I'd have my little toys, my Power Ranger figurine, and I'd ask questions. What's that mean? Well, that means flute, and they're part of the woodwind family. And these instruments can work together in this way and create this sound. And this sound can convey to you this emotion. And I just thought that was the most fun thing.
That's one of the most amazing and mysterious things about music, is that certain sounds, tones, instruments create emotion. Mm. And as an arranger, you have to learn how to create emotion, putting it down either on paper or through Finale or some digital program. That's got to be a very difficult thing to do, at least at the beginning.
Sure. And the way that we learn to do that is by mimicking. We'll hear something that provides a certain sound to us, and then we'll run to the piano and try to figure out, one, harmonically and melodically what it was, and rhythmically what it is, and then we'll play around. And, when I was in college, I used to buy pizza for my friends, and I'd say, "Free pizza, come play my charts," and see if I could apply what I had learned at the piano to these instruments and learn their restrictions and learn their timbres and how they functioned, how they worked.
Well, one of the things that's interesting to me is that in the days when people were writing music on manuscript paper like this, we didn't have digital technology where one could use Finale or some playback system to hear what they created. So everything was in somebody's imagination. So you had to be able to hear what you're notating.
Sure.
But you probably have only worked in the digital realm, or is that inaccurate?
Well, actually, I learned to write on pad first. Just at the piano. The software is a barrier. It's a whole other thing that you have to learn. And sometimes it doesn't want to cooperate. So I feel like a lot of arrangers, a lot of orchestrators, at least who are in my age range, we grew up, still writing on paper.
And you're how old?
I'm somewhere between 25 and 35.
Okay, well, that sounds good to me, because I am not.
You fooled me. But, very much so. I think it's really interesting. I don't think my penmanship is good enough to do something like this and have a copyist not be extremely furious with me. But the relationship that these composers and these arrangers and these orchestrators had with their copyists, we have the same relationship with our copyist, and a copyist is someone who kind of takes our scratch and they will expand it and format it into parts and scores so that they're legible and will help kind of organize a library. But my copyist, I'll call him with questions about formatting, and I have a shorthand that he knows.
Right.
And that relationship is still there, even though I'm not writing to paper anymore. I'm writing directly into the computer.
Because there are still things that have to be accomplished human to human.
Exactly.
So do you think that AI will ever replace any of this?
It could, but I think that in terms of interpreting songs,
and inspiration,
there's a human element that needs to be there. Some people call it soul. Some people call it divine intervention. I don't know.
Yes.
But I think for now, my job is safe.
I think it is too, especially since you're a Tony winner.
Well,
it helps, right? I mean,
sure.
Yeah. Well, these are just to give people an idea of what we're talking about. If you don't understand what an orchestration is, a song is created by usually a composer and a lyricist. In the case of Come Rain or Come Shine, it's music by Harold Arlen, lyrics by Johnny Mercer, and it says recorded by Dinah Shore on HMV Records. So somebody had to do an orchestration for her to sing. But this is the sheet music, which was created for piano and voice. And then the publisher would take this, and they would also prepare what they called a stock orchestration, which is they'd have an in-house arranger who would create an arrangement that could be played by all the local big bands with all the parts for the different instruments. And then when a singer would make their own recording of it, they would hire an arranger. In this case, this is the score for a Natalie Cole recording, arranged by Patrick Williams, who was one of the great arrangers in Hollywood. And so these scores give us information because they have corrections. There's a penciled in red, or you see where there are changes made, or something is cut, or in this case, there is a paste over where something was fixed. So all these things had to be done manually, and now you can do a lot of these things with the click of a button, where you can just move it up a half step, or if somebody says, "Oh, I want to sing it in another key," you can adapt it. But of course, there are the issues about the range of what the instruments can play. So sometimes then you have to revoice it.
Absolutely. You can have something and technically it will work on that instrument a half step up or a minor third up. But it may become too loud, in that range.
If it's accompanying a singer.
If it's accompanying a singer, or even just in terms of balance within a section or with other instruments. So there are all of these considerations as arrangers and orchestrators that we have to make.
Yes. And having worked on Broadway and beyond, and I know that you're working on a concert piece for Jazz at Lincoln Center, do you have a preferred medium for which you like to write?
I certainly think that there's more freedom in writing for concert music, because there's less cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
But I do very much enjoy writing for theater and writing for film, and even in the studio, film, TV.
Well, do you have any advice you would give someone who would be crazy enough to go into this profession?
Listen, 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 listen. Arrangers and orchestrators, our greatest tool is the ability to pull from references and to be able to do it quickly and reliably. So just listen and absorb as much music as you can, and then do your best to try to transcribe or recreate what you hear.
Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you.
It's a joy to have Bryan in our archives. We're going to keep him in the archive here because I think he's a valuable addition. So we're going to try and keep you from leaving Carmel. So he'll be part of our collection. So.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you for joining us here in the archives, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you.